You remarried a man with child. Look how defective you are.
Today is the first day of school at the elementary school. I wanted to watch my child's shining moment with a calm heart, but I ended up running into my ex-husband, Michael. It felt like no time had passed in the 9 years as Michael started chatting up casually.
Speaking of which, are you alone? Where's your husband? Was this a remarriage just to dump the kid on someone? You're being used, poor thing. Or are you just happy to have a child because you couldn't have one? Even if it's someone else's.
Why do I have to be put down by someone from the past? I feel like I'm reaching my limit. But today is an important day for us. I try to be patient. That's all I can do right now. Despite my restraint, Michael ended up terrified of my serious husband. He was all by himself, shaking and acting threatening. I'm Susan, 24 years old. I just recently got married and moved to this peaceful rural area. My husband, Michael Wilson, was born in this small town. We met here in this town as well. A year ago, while on a road trip in a rental car with my friends, following the GPS led us into a ditch by accident. While pushing forward despite feeling anxious, I realized I was right in the middle of a potato field. Panicked, I tried to make a U-turn but got stuck in the mud. The car wouldn't move forward or backward. Just as I was standing there dumbfounded, Michael appeared dashing. He immediately called for help, and the car was safely extracted from the mud.
Hey, thank you for your help.
Since you're my friend, I'll give you a special price, $3,000, okay?
Hey, that's a rip-off, man.
Michael joked around with his friend he had called for help, looking cooler than any man I had ever met. Thank you so much.
Don't worry. I can't just ignore a cute girl in trouble, right?
I treated him to lunch to express my gratitude, leading to dating and marriage. The town is a neighborhood of a slightly prosperous regional town. It's not quite rural, but it's pretty much the countryside. Michael's parents built a house next door to their own as a wedding gift for us, which has been incredibly generous. However, the area was surrounded by residential houses, and we needed a car to go to the supermarket or even buy juice. I was an inexperienced driver and wasn't very good at driving because of the previous incident when I got stuck in a muddy road, so I just tried my best to practice driving. I managed to get used to driving, so I was relieved when I got married, but I realized later that the problem was not my driving skill. Surrounded by his local buddies, Michael is very sociable. Michael and his friends love barbecue, so our backyard often becomes festive, with 4 or 5 guys frequently gathering.
Hey Susan, we're out of beers. As my wife, pour beer to everyone without being told, right?
It's not even summer yet, but this morning's news was warning about heat stroke. It's an unusually hot day for the season. And here I am, endlessly flipping meat in front of the barbecue grill. My makeup is melting off with sweat.
Susan, where are the drinks? And they's no meat either. I really want some spare ribs. How long do we have to wait? If it takes this long just to grill at a barbecue, how many days would it take you to make a regular meal?
One of his friends teased me, and everyone burst out laughing. Michael laughed along with them. Oh no, sorry about that. Caught up in the atmosphere, I laughed too. Sweat ran into my eyes and stung. Tears blurred my vision, but they must have been mistaken for sweat, so nobody around me noticed. I keep smiling and working in front of almost strangers. I thought I was sociable and enjoyed hanging out, but even so, hanging out with his friends is just exhausting. The teasing from husband friends and being treated like a maid is painful, but I'm the wife, the newcomer, so maybe this is just how it is. Since I can't quite match their energy, I might as well stick to grilling meat and smile ambiguously. But being the only woman in a gathering of mostly men is frankly annoying every time.
Oh my god, Susan just can't get it right, can she? Okay, I'll serve everyone some drinks myself. Oh, does everyone seem happy? You all like me too much.
The members gathering always change, but Sarah, with her high-pitched voice, is always there. It seems she was the center of attention before I joined. At first, the men approached me too, but Sarah chased them off like pests.
Susan is Michael's wife. No touching, no flirting.
I was grateful to Sarah for a moment, but I soon realized her true nature. Like Michael and the other men, she left all the barbecue preparation and cleanup to me while Sarah just drank amongst the men. Without getting up, she calls out, "Susan, I want a hamburger, no tomato, please." The only other female participant was not on my side. The barbecues, supposedly held to foster interaction between me, the newcomer, and the local friends, have been going on for about 6 months since the marriage, but I still don't feel like I fit in. This time's barbecue was just another session of listening to a friend's tall tales.
So there I was, taking down 100 things all by myself, and guess what? By my bare hands.
Could that fight even be realistically possible? I wonder, but I know they don't need any response other than, "Well, that's amazing." After the barbecue wraps up and everyone has gone home, I still can't relax.
Don't believe that story from him. It was actually me who showed up when he was getting beaten up and took down those guys. I just don't say it to give him some credit. Everyone in this town used to tremble just hearing my name, Michael. Even folks from the next town over were scared of me. Funny, right? I'm usually so nice.
After enduring his friend's heroic stories, Michael now turns to regale me with his own. Again, no response is allowed other than, "Wow, that's incredible." I'm more tired of listening to their heroic stories and Sarah's queenly behavior and the actual serving at the barbecue. My troubles continue. As I'm left alone cleaning up after the barbecue in the yard, my mother-in-law from the next house over pops her head out.
It looked like another exciting and fun day.
Yeah. Though it's hard for me to say it was enjoyable. She gently admonishes me.
But you know, when are you going to have kids if you keep just hanging out with friends? Barbecues are more fun with family. You've been married for half a year, so it's time to start planning, you know. Susan, you'll be 25 soon, right? You should start thinking about having your first child soon. Or by the third, you'll be an older mother, right? You know, Michael's turning 27 in August, so why not try to get pregnant before then?
Well, that sounds good, but these things are blessings that come on their own. I fumble my words, but my mother-in-law cheerfully replies,
Don't worry, dear. At 25, you can still have kids easily. A girl would be nice first since they are easier to raise, then a boy. The third one can be either. You're so pretty, Susan. I'm sure your kids will be adorable too. Oh, I can't wait.
It seems there's no malice in my mother-in-law's words. Actually, I've grown quite tired of hearing this too. Just like Michael's friends and his heroic stories, my mother-in-law also gleefully talks about her future grandchildren. It's been 2 years since I married Michael. Michael's friends used to hang out with have one by one gotten married and had kids, and the group's numbers are dwindling, but the festive barbecues continue as usual. And yet, I still haven't had a child. Nothing has changed from 2 years ago, except the attitudes of those around me. Michael and his friends increasingly took me for granted, using me without any hesitation. My mother-in-law's comments have become clearly more pointed.
Michael will soon be 30, and you're 27, right? It wouldn't be odd if you had 2 kids by now. Poor Michael. Why won't you make him a father?
If I could, I would love to be a mother, but I haven't gotten pregnant even once in these 2 years. I wanted to get tested at the hospital and undergo fertility treatments if necessary, but my mother-in-law and husband strongly opposed it because of how it would look to others. The once cheerful mother-in-law now calls me useless. As Michael's wife, it's expected that I handle all the household chores perfectly, work part-time at the factory during weekdays, and entertain Michael's friends on weekends. In the early mornings and late afternoons, I also help out with my in-laws' business without pay, so there's hardly any time to rest and it's pretty tough. Despite working so hard, it seems I'm useless if I don't have a child. If only I could have a child. Feeling cornered, I tried folk remedies and bought supplements and herbal medicines online that are supposed to be good for fertility, doing everything I could. But no results. It makes sense. Michael and I hardly engage in the kind of activities that could lead to having a child.
Fertility, kids, it's so annoying. You're making me feel down.
Even though his parents are pressuring him, he has no intention of cooperating. It's impossible for a woman to get pregnant on her own, but I was desperate not to miss the few chances we had. Such futile efforts became meaningless one day.
Let's get a divorce.
Out of the blue, during a typical breakfast, Michael brought up the idea of divorce. What? Why?
Because you can't have kids. What about my heir?
That's something we can work on together. That's when my mother-in-law interrupted.
Susan, do you know what the most important job of a wife is? To produce an heir.
Well, yes, that's... As I looked down, my mother-in-law spoke with a hint of kindness.
It's okay, Susan.
When I looked up, both my mother-in-law and Michael were smiling.
Relax, the heir is on the way.
Confused, I tilted my head. Michael's smile twisted into a sneer at me.
Yo, the heir is on the way. You see, Sarah's pregnant. Unlike you, who couldn't manage in 2 years, Sarah got it right on the first try.
Sarah is impressive.
Wait a minute, so what does that mean? Michael and Sarah are having an affair, and Sarah is pregnant. Does that mean I, his wife, am being discarded? Though I understood, I didn't cry or get angry. I just spaced out. My in-laws, excited about their first grandchild, handed me $10,000, and the next day I was kicked out of the house. Surprisingly, Michael, my in-laws, and even Sarah came to see me off.
I'll do my best to have a healthy baby. Susan, don't despair just because you're infertile. Even without kids, life can still be good. Take care, bye-bye.
Without waiting to see me off, my in-laws and Michael, along with Sarah, went back into the house I had lived in until just yesterday. It's been 9 years since I was unilaterally divorced, and I'm now 37 years old. Today, I dressed up more than usual, wearing a bright colored skirt. Today is the first day of school at the elementary school. Many flowers decorate the schoolyard, celebrating the start of the new students. Parents and students had gathered in the classroom.
Is that Susan?
I was enjoying the moment with my digital camera in hand, but a voice from behind made my spine chill. It's a crude voice and suitable for a day of celebration. The owner of the voice forcibly peered into my face.
Well, it really is Susan. What are you doing here? Why are you at my school? Hey, don't ignore me.
Reluctantly, I looked at the cheerful man. The man I met eyes with was undoubtedly my ex-husband, Michael.
No way, it really is Susan. Why are you at our school? Oh, we often get emails about suspicious people at school, but Susan as a suspicious person?
Next to Michael was Sarah, unchanged even after 9 years. She was dressed in a flashy miniskirt suit, appropriate for a nightclub, with her hair done up extravagantly. I didn't want to be associated with such people and be thought of as the same kind. I'm here because it's my child's first day at school. Without turning around, I said just that, and Michael and Sarah burst out laughing.
Did you hear that? She says it's her child. Infertile and all.
Scary. Definitely a suspicious person, infertile and all.
The classroom was somewhat lively, but their voices were louder than anyone else's. Unable to bear it, I spoke up. I remarried after we split. Class is about to start, so please take your seats and be quiet. I said coldly and decided to ignore them from then on.
Well, you remarried a man with child. Look how defective you are.
Incredibly, Michael and Sarah sat next to me. Sarah smugly lifted her chin and stroked her belly. Glancing over, I noticed her belly was rounded, just like 9 years ago. Without anyone asking, Sarah started blabbering.
Oh, notice this. It's the 5th one in here. The one entering today is our 3rd child. It's so easy for us to have kids. Sorry to the infertile Susan.
I focused straight ahead, but Michael annoyingly poked me and intruded familiarly.
Don't ignore me, so you're alone. Where's your husband? Did your remarriage partner dump the kid on you? I see, your husband must be a loser.
I just came to watch my child's proud moment. Yet why must I be belittled by someone from the past? I feel like I'm reaching my limit. But today is an important day for us. I try to be patient. That's all I can do right now. Soon, the class began. When the homeroom teacher appeared, they began to fuss. However, as expected, they were quiet during the roll call. But I was appalled to see them looking bored and playing games on their smartphones. It's sad to see parents who should be role models for their children acting this way. They were so absorbed in playing games on their smartphones that they did not listen to the principal's greeting at all.
Well, I got a rare item in the game. Look.
We aren't even friends, but Michael casually spoke to me. Even a whispered conversation stands out in a quiet setting, and I didn't want to be dragged into it. When I didn't respond, Michael nudged my shoulder with a bored expression.
What's with that look? Is it fun attending a stepchild's school? Who cares about someone else's kid, right?
Michael kept provoking me as if testing how long I could keep my cool.
Are you scared of your new husband or something? Can't go against him. Figures, he's the type of loser who dumps his kid on you and doesn't even show up to the school. I bet the kid would rat you out to him, right?
Michael nodded to himself, assuming he was right.
Me, I'm the kind of dad who actually shows up for my cute kids. Am I a good dad? Well, it's pretty normal nowadays. But your husband's just a loser, isn't he? Maybe your remarriage was just to offload kid on you. Must be sad being used like that. Or maybe you're just happy to have kid, even if they're not yours.
The whispered insults just wouldn't stop. Sarah chuckled next to him as the insults continued under their breaths. But today is an important day for us. I try to be patient.
Michael is actually a pretty caring dad. Always attends the school events. If Susan could have gotten pregnant, you could have been happy with Michael.
I feel responsible for Sarah being left by me, a kind and gentle man, and falling for a scumbag.
Be patient, be patient. No, I can't take it anymore. I won't let them insult me or my family any longer. I'll introduce you to my husband. I muttered sternly without looking at them, facing straight ahead. I was determined to make them see that my husband was not the loser they imagined.
Oh really? Where is this an impressive husband of yours?
Michael looked around mockingly. I kept my eyes on the front and responded, "He's right in front of you. The man currently giving a speech as the representative of the new students' parents. That's my husband."
No way.
For the first time, Michael and Sarah looked at the front. There stood a man confidently giving a speech. "He is my proud husband, Henry." He wasn't sitting next to me only because he had duties as the representative for the parents of the new students. But of course, he was there watching our child grow. He is not the kind of man who leaves all the parenting to the mother or shows no interest in his children.
Is he a representative? Just likes the spotlight.
Michael and Sarah were slightly flustered. The sight of Henry, a serious man far removed from their expectations, evidently annoyed them. Henry has actively taken on roles in the kindergarten and community association. The first time they were choosing officers at the kindergarten and everyone else was looking down, unable to bear the tense atmosphere, Henry volunteered to start. Henry, being tall and not very talkative, might seem intimidating at first glance. But deep down, he's a serious person who has earnestly contributed to the kindergarten and our local community. I expect he'll be just as active in the elementary school community.
Congratulations on your first day at school today.
Henry finished his speech. Glancing at Michael, I saw him inexplicably pale and trembling slightly.
That guy, you've got to be kidding.
It's strange that Michael is so shocked just because my husband is a serious man. Michael leaned closer to Sarah, shrinking in size. After that, Michael and Sarah quieted down, and the first day concluded without further interruption. After that, I quickly distanced myself from them. Henry was caught up in a conversation and didn't come out of the classroom for several minutes. Peeking inside, I saw he was trapped by a chatty neighbor. This might take a while. I stood alone at the entrance, looking up at the trees swaying in the wind. Then, Michael and Sarah, who had been watching me from afar, deliberately came over to taunt me again.
Hey, all alone. That guy earlier being your husband must have been a bluff. Look, there's your so-called husband in the classroom with his real wife. See, I knew it was weird to think he was your husband.
Embarrassing yourself with lies. We're so in love that you must have felt the need to show off, right?
It seems they've reset to their original assumption that I'm a poor woman deceived by a worthless man, despite what I said.
Anyway, our kid was the cutest out there today.
Michael bragged, arms crossed and eyes closed, reminiscing about his child's growth. Despite being more restless than the new first graders, constantly playing games and whispering, he seemed deeply moved.
So, which one was your stepchild? Introduce us.
He's not a stepchild, he's my own son.
Sure, as if you could have kids. No need to lie.
Michael and Sarah grinned mockingly. Just then, my son Jack ran up with an innocent smile. Honestly, I didn't want him near them, but they are parents of my son's classmate. In front of Jack, I couldn't blatantly avoid them.
Mom, did I respond loudly enough?
Yes, you did. You were great, I said, patting proud Jack on the head. Turning back to Michael and Sarah, their smiles had vanished.
Oh, he looks just like Susan.
They probably imagined a stepchild who looked nothing like me. But Jack and I could almost be said to be identical. It's clear just by looking that we are undoubtedly parent and child. Yes, we do look alike. We're real parent and child after all.
But you were infertile.
They still harped on infertility even in the face of Jack. Seems like they can't think of anything worse to say. After I divorced Michael, I remarried and got pregnant right away. Nothing happened when I was with Michael. I used to be worried about not getting pregnant, but now I'm truly glad it allowed me to leave him cleanly. Deprived of their material to demean me, they glared at me with faces like they were chewing on bitter bugs. Chins pulled in, eyebrows furrowed, and mouths moving as if they were chewing gum, they stared me down. He's scowling like a gangster. I urged Jack to head back to class quickly. Never thought I'd face such juvenile behavior from parents in their 40s. These days, outright delinquents are rare, and people like Michael and Sarah are practically an endangered species.
What? So you're saying it wasn't you but Michael who was the problem? Just so you know, all 5 of our kids are Michael's. No lies.
Suddenly, Sarah lashed out. I knew from the start that a proper conversation was impossible. Interacting with them is just a waste of time. However, as I tried to walk away, ignoring them, Michael grabbed my shoulder.
Getting smart with me.
I didn't want to be disturbed by Michael, who I had severed ties with 9 years ago. As I was about to shake off his hand, Michael was suddenly overshadowed by a dark figure. When he turned around in surprise, there stood Henry, imposing and silent. Without a word, Henry gently removed Michael's hand from my shoulder. Though he wasn't twisted or forced in any way, Michael couldn't stop trembling. Meanwhile, Henry's muscles were visible even through his suit, making his mere presence imposing. His chest seemed to be about twice as thick as Michael's. Henry, a head taller, looked down on Michael from above.
Is there a problem?
Henry asked in a rumbling, low voice.
No, all good here. This doesn't involve you.
Michael forced a smile and tried to ingratiate himself with Henry.
Oh, Henry from the next town over, right? I've respected you since way back.
Despite retreating, Michael tried to cozy up to Henry. It seems Michael knew of Henry. Henry doesn't talk much about himself, but I've heard stories from others. Since his school days, he was well-built and solid, respected without needing to raise his voice or his fists, feared for reasons not quite clear. Being a loner rather than part of a group might have contributed to the respect he commanded. There's also a legend, though its truth is uncertain, that once Henry alone fought and won against some dangerous people. Henry denies it, but people around believe it to be true. Michael, who lived in the neighboring town, had also heard the rumors. He used to boast, when people hear the name Michael in this town, they all tremble, but his bravado is nowhere to be seen now. Michael groveled and fawned obsequiously. Sarah, laughing sloppily, clung to Henry's sturdy arm. Some men might enjoy being casually touched by a woman, but Henry looked very displeased as he shook off Sarah's hand. "Don't touch my husband," I blurted out unexpectedly. Michael and Sarah froze, looking at each other. During that moment, Henry walked over and put his arm around my shoulder. Michael must have realized deep down that Henry and I were truly married, but he was probably too frightened to admit it. Nervously, Michael started to speak.
"Susan, you're Henry."
Michael looked confused. "I am Henry's wife," I declared clearly. Henry nodded deeply, and finally, Michael lost his color.
"No way, that can't be true."
It was the second time today he expressed disbelief. The once confrontational Michael now slumped his shoulders, looking like a different person.
You seem quite familiar with my wife just now. Please, feel free to include me in your conversation.
"No, that's okay."
I heard what you were discussing. Infertility, right? But is it appropriate to discuss such a delicate matter loudly, especially on such at school?
Michael shrank even more, sweating profusely, and started to back away slowly.
"I'm sorry."
Without caring that his suit might get dirty, Michael knelt on the dirt-covered concrete that had flown from the playground.
"I didn't know. I had no idea Susan is your wife."
As Michael nearly hit his head on the concrete, Henry stopped him. Even a gentle touch on the shoulder made Michael jump.
So you are Michael Wilson. I've heard about you from Susan. It seems you treated her quite harshly in the past.
"No, well,
Henry helped Michael stand up, then crouched to meet his eye level and gave a slight smile.
But that's in the past. Now, as parents, let's both act in ways that won't embarrass our children."
He said in a deep, resonant voice that seemed to vibrate the air. "Yes," was all Michael could muster, his voice shaky. Tears welled up in Michael's eyes as he trembled, looking like a poorly controlled puppet. Henry's expression remained neutral, his eyes narrowing slightly.
It's our promise.
That simple reminder hit Michael like a bullet. He stumbled backward and fell on his behind. Michael, who used to boast about his misdeeds, now cowered like a puppy with his tail ticked between his legs in front of someone stronger. It was pitiful to see what kind of person he really was. Henry, known as a former tough guy from the neighboring town, had transformed into a good father, whereas Michael and Sarah had not grown up at all since their school days. They trembled in fear at the thought of Henry's past. But does such an old tale still have power to subdue people in this town today? If it has any effect, it's only within their narrow community. Michael and Sarah are a shame in terms of their appearance and behavior.
Shall we go, Susan?
Right? There's a parent meeting after the class. Glancing at Michael and Sarah, who were still sitting stunned, I remembered that the PTA officers were to be elected at the meeting. You two should also attend the parent meeting. You'll be late. I called out to them as fellow parents, seeing that they might stay frozen there for hours otherwise. Surprisingly, Henry shook his head.
The PTA president just told me that Michael doesn't need to participate specially. We should be going soon.
Though puzzled, I started walking as Henry nudged me forward. However, Henry's words somehow revived Michael.
That's right. I'm special.
He regained his confidence and began to boast to me.
Yo, I'm a big deal in this town. Henry might not know since he's from the next town over, but I'm quite famous here. Only I am exempt from PTA duties. The teachers told me, Michael, you don't have to bother with PTA stuff. They're scared of me.
Our local elementary school had a declining number of students and was merged last year with the school in Michael's area. I was anxious about being in Michael's living area and hadn't realized our children would be the same age. Michael seemed to suggest that he held more sway in this town than Henry. Perhaps being intimidated by Henry, he had just remembered this was his turf. Despite having been submissive in front of Henry's past until now, his sudden switch was hard to follow.
Really? Is that what you think?
Henry sighed, holding his head.
It's not because they're scared of you that you're excused from being a PTA officer. To be clear, you're excluded.
Michael and Sarah looked dumbfounded, clearly believing they were truly special. Henry, usually so calm, must have been really upset to speak this much.
Do you actually do any of the assigned PTA tasks? No, right? Instead, you just complain and disrupt the harmony. I've heard about all the trouble you caused when your older child entered school.
Michael fell silent.
Come on, pull yourself together. Don't let Henry beat you.
Sarah shook Michael, who was twitching nervously. Henry caught Sarah with a stern look.
And you, Sarah, is it true what they say, that you neglected your children and PTA duties, too busy flirting with fathers you liked?
Sarah also fell silent. Looking down at them, Henry continued.
They said it was a hassle to deal with PTA stuff, and thanks to you saying that, everyone, teachers and parents alike, agreed it's best if you don't get involved. Normally, there would be complaints about such unfairness, but there's not a single objection. That's how much of a nuisance you both are.
Some parents listening nodded in agreement. Those with older children apparently knew of Michael's bad reputation. Michael's face turned bright red.
What? Don't spout nonsense. Even if you are Henry from the neighboring town, I won't forgive this.
Spitting as he shouted, Michael exclaimed,
Do you know what happens when you make me angry? My friends will come soon.
Reminded of past unpleasant events, I cringed at his outburst. But I'm not the same person who used to be afraid of him. My friends? You mean you're calling those guys?
Yo, seriously.
Why don't you call them? They'll come running if you pay them, right?
What?
I hadn't realized it during our marriage, but in hindsight, Michael was just a cash cow for his friends. His family was quite wealthy, and Michael was known for splurging. I remember even the friend who helped me when my car was stuck in mud, Michael handed him a wad of cash from his wallet. At the barbecues, there was all-you-can-drink beer and premium beef. Thinking about it, those guys never responded to invitations that didn't involve money or beer. They often seemed to be hitting up for money too, frequently asking for special prices. Just tens of thousands of dollars will do. How much would it take for them to go after Henry from the neighboring town? Michael lost his momentum and hung his head. It seemed he realized even he was tied by money. Finding out I knew, he suddenly felt embarrassed.
No, no.
If you think so, why don't you call them without flashing money?
Shut up. They wouldn't come without money, Michael. You have the money, pay them $5,000 or $10,000 to shut them up. You have the money?
Sarah slapped Michael on the back forcefully. Michael's energy drained even more. When even Sarah tells him to solve things with money, what can he do? Michael's tales of bravery were probably all lies. He bought his power with his parents' money and misunderstood his own status. Michael was miserable.
I'm awesome, man.
Michael muttered in a tearful voice, holding his head. Unable to endure the sneering looks from around, Michael slowly made his way to the school gate. Bent over so much he seemed to vanish like a ghost, though he was, of course, clearly visible. Maybe I should stop saying anything more. Out of pity? No, just out of sheer embarrassment.
Michael, where are you going? Going to get money from your mom.
But Sarah, oblivious to the mood, shouted as she followed Michael. Henry and I exchanged looks with other parents around us, all sharing a wry smile. After that, Michael and Sarah no longer showed up at the school. In a small town, rumors spread fast. Apparently, there were doubts that all 5 of Michael's children were actually his. Sarah was known for flirting with men at the children's kindergarten and school, which resulted in their exclusion, not just exemption, from the PTA. Michael apparently didn't know until Henry told him on the day at the school.
He didn't know about his wife's reputation with men.
Henry was surprised later. Everyone thought Sarah's behavior was well known, but it seems no one had told Michael. Having no real friends among his followers, no one had informed him.
Wow, did I accidentally spill the beans on her affair? Did I do something bad?
It's stranger that everyone in town knew except Michael. It's not really a bad thing. Weeks later, for some reason, Michael showed up at our house. In the countryside, addresses are easily obtained. I braced myself thinking he came to complain, but Michael was unexpectedly calm, as if a burden had been lifted from him.
I got divorced. I was completely deceived by Sarah. She thought marrying me meant no more worries about money. Then, she just played around and ended up having a bunch of kids whose fathers could be anyone, and expected me to pay for everything. Funny, right?
He laughed with a hint of self-deprecation. Sarah was kicked out, and now Michael's parents are looking after the children. Michael suggested a DNA test, but his parents refused, not wanting to admit anything bad to the public. They've decided to raise the kids as his family grandchildren. It remains unclear whether he even has the ability to father children. He is probably torn between wanting to reveal the truth and struggling to accept the reality.
And now, my mom yelled at me for spending too much money, and I got kicked out too.
I was afraid to hear more.
We could start over, right? This time we don't even need kids. I just need the kind Susan to support me.
The idea made me shiver. I stated firmly, I can't.
Don't say that. Weren't we in love once?
So, you mean since you've been abandoned by your wealthy parents, you can't survive on your own, so you need my support? His friends who used to hang around Michael are gone now that he has no money. That's why he came to me, thinking I might be an easy target. I'm definitely not. It's not about the money. I simply cannot bear to be near Michael as a person. Now alone, Michael is just getting by with part-time jobs in our small town. He doesn't have the courage to leave for the city even after all this. Meanwhile, Sarah quickly snagged a new man and got married, but it turned out to be a marriage scam, and she was swindled out of her money. Over 40 and drowning in debt. When will she realize that she can no longer afford to pick and choose men to play with? Her life, dependent on men, is predictably heading downhill. Despite all this, we'll soon no longer hear these rumors. We've decided to move as a family. It might be sad to leave the area where Henry grew up, but it seems he too feels it's time to go. Jack's class had only 18 students, and of those, only 5 were boys.
Mom, at the next school there are 4 classes for each grade. There are over 100 first graders. I might make 100 friends. Isn't that awesome?
Jack is looking forward to the new environment. There will surely be some difficult people in the bigger town. But we believe there will be even better opportunities and meetings.